Chew on this. Big. On a hot July morning in 2004, Sam Fabricant sat on the edge of a bed at the Mirage, a hotel in Las Vegas. He was facing the toughest decision of his life. His mother and his twin brother Charlie sat beside him. It was the last day of their family vacation, and before returning home to Buffalo Grove, Illinois, Sam needed to make up his mind. His family wanted him to have gastric bypass surgery. Sam had just turned 16 years old and weighed almost 300 pounds. The operation would reduce his stomach from about the size of a football to the size of a golf ball. It would limit the amount of food absorbed by his small intestine. It would make Sam want to eat less and help him to lose weight. But the operation also posed some risks. If something went wrong, it would kill him. Sam had tried not to think about the operation while on vacation. This trip was supposed to be fun. The Mirage is one of the most famous hotels in Las Vegas. It has swimming pools, game rooms, a casino, Siegfried and Roy's white tiger habitat, dolphins swimming in enormous tanks, and a man-made volcano that erupts every 15 minutes in the evening, shooting fire 100 feet into the air. Sam had enjoyed wandering around the Mirage, checking out the stores and eating at the restaurants. For years he'd dreamed of becoming a hotel manager and had even written letters to Steve Wynn, the founder of the Mirage. Although he felt great admiration for Wynn, Sam no longer wanted to run a hotel. Now he wanted to become a high school history teacher. Despite all the excitement at the Mirage, this trip to Vegas was ending on a bittersweet note. Sam realized that he'd gained a lot of weight over the past year, and it made him sad. As a young boy, Sam had always been thin. His family used to call him String Bean. At about the age of 10, he started to get too big. He loved eating large meals at home and really loved going out for fast food. After reaching his teens, Sam began to eat at fast food restaurants 3 or 4 times a week. His parents both worked long hours and often took him to McDonald's after school. Sam liked to order 2 hamburgers and French fries. He also drank a lot of soda, about 2 quarts a day. Sam's eating habits were by no means unusual at his high school. Every morning at Buffalo Grove High School, a buzzer sounded at 11:10 to release students from 4th period classes. Some people called the buzzer the school bell, but it didn't sound anything like a bell. It sounded like the noise a McDonald's French fry machine makes when the fries are done, which seemed fitting since the fry machines were buzzing throughout the day at the McDonald's right across the street. And as soon as 4th period ended, kids would leave campus for their Big Macs, McNuggets, and McFlurries. Sometimes the Buffalo Grove McDonald's sold hamburgers for just a quarter and cheeseburgers for 35 cents. Kids would buy as many as 5 or 6 burgers at a time. They would rush across Dundee Road for fast food lunches, often ignoring the traffic light. Students were struck by cars every year. After being hit by a car on Dundee Road, one kid asked some friends, as medics loaded him into an ambulance, to bring his burger to the hospital. Buffalo Grove High School opened in 1973 on land that used to be a cornfield. The McDonald's on Dundee Road was the first building to open near the school, and by the time Sam became a freshman at Buffalo Grove, there was an ice cream parlor right next to the McDonald's, as well as a Popeyes, a Pizza Hut, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Brown's Chicken and Pasta, and a Burger King. Sometimes, students who didn't care for those options could drive a few minutes down the road to Taco Bell, KFC, Subway, Dairy Queen, Super China, Jimmy John's, another Burger King, Portillo's, Walker Brothers, Chuck E. Cheese's, White Castle, Wendy's, another Pizza Hut, Denny's, Einstein Brothers Bagels, Fuddruckers, or Culver's, home of the Butter Burger. The cafeteria at Buffalo Grove High School wasn't large enough for all the students, and so when the buzzer sounded at 11:10, out they went, by foot or by car, to the fast food joints of Dundee Road. Sam's twin brother Charlie attended the same school. Charlie also loved to eat fast food. At Burger King, he'd usually order 2 Whoppers with fries. In 2003, at the age of 15, Charlie had gastric bypass surgery. He weighed 350 pounds at the time. The operation was a success. Within a year, Charlie had lost 100 pounds. The doctors had made his stomach so small that he couldn't eat more than half a cup of food at a meal. If he tried to eat more, he might stretch his new little stomach and gain weight. So he ate 6 small meals a day, and he never chewed gum because the doctors said if he swallowed it, they might have to perform another operation to remove it. Charlie had learned a great deal about gastric bypass surgery from his mother. She'd had the operation in 1998 and had lost 75 pounds since then. Despite the risk and the inconvenience and the limits on what they could eat, she and Charlie felt glad they'd had the surgery. They hoped Sam would do it too. At times during the Las Vegas vacation, Sam resented his twin brother. Although the two had always been very close, Sam now felt a twinge of jealousy. When they went to clothing stores, Charlie could find shirts and pants that fit. Sam couldn't. He felt insecure and self-conscious about his body. The recent weight gain had made his asthma worse. He needed to use his inhaler more often and had trouble walking around Las Vegas. He thought about all the ways in which being so big had made his life more difficult. Sam loved to play sports, but now had to sit down after playing basketball for just a few minutes. He wanted to attend the prom, but felt too embarrassed. He was a baseball fan and loved to watch the Cubs play at Wrigley Field, but he no longer fit comfortably into the seats at the stadium. Although he knew that surgery had helped his brother and his mother, Sam was afraid of the operation. For months he'd come close to making the decision, and had always backed away at the last minute. Sitting on the bed at the Mirage, Sam decided to take the risk. He just couldn't live this way anymore. Monster thick burgers. The huge popularity of gastric bypass surgery has a simple explanation. Over the past few decades, as the fast food industry has grown, so have the waistlines of most Americans. Today, almost 2/3 of the adults in the United States and about 1/6 of the children are overweight or obese. Almost 50 million Americans are now obese. An additional 6 or 7 million are morbidly obese. They weigh about 100 pounds more than they should. Since the early 1970s, the rate of obesity among American adults has increased by 50%. Among preschoolers, it has doubled. And among children aged 6 to 11, it has tripled. According to James O. Hill, a nutritionist at the University of Colorado, we've got the fattest, least fit generation of kids ever. Scientists are just beginning to understand why so many people have gotten so fat recently in the United States. Obesity clearly has a number of complex, interconnected causes. What you eat, how much of it you eat, and how much you exercise help to determine your weight. The genes that you inherit from your parents can also play a role. Some families, and even some racial groups, may be more likely than others to gain weight easily. But the basic family and racial traits of the American people haven't changed in the past 30 years. What's changed are their eating and living habits. When people eat more and move less, they get fat. For thousands of years, human beings had to struggle for food. Getting enough food to survive usually required hard work, hunting, farming, fishing. And when food supplies ran low, people had to survive for days or weeks without eating much. For most of human history, getting too fat wasn't the problem. Getting food was the problem. Scientists think that our bodies developed fat cells in order to store energy for those periods when food was hard to find. Today, few of us have to hunt, farm, or fish for our daily meals. All we have to do is open the refrigerator, or go to the supermarket, or stop at a drive-thru. Our bodies, however, still function as though the food may run out at any moment. As a result, it's much easier to gain weight and store energy as fat than it is to lose it. A typical person has 25 to 35 billion fat cells. The body needs those fat cells to stay healthy. They communicate with the brain, signaling how much energy has been stored and when it's time to eat. They also play an important role in the immune system, helping the body protect itself from cancer and diseases. Fat cells are good for you, but in this case, you don't want too much of a good thing. An obese person can develop as many as 275 billion fat cells. That's almost 8 times the normal amount. All these fat cells don't just sit there. They require new blood vessels and place new demands on vital organs. They create chemical imbalances. Instead of helping the immune system, these billions of new fat cells make the body much more vulnerable to illnesses. Once you've got so many fat cells, it's hard to get rid of them. Going on a diet only shrinks them. That may be one of the reasons why many people go on a diet, lose weight, and then gain back all the weight a few months later. Their fat cells rarely vanish. They just shrivel for a while, like empty little balloons, and then fill up with fat again. Becoming obese early in life may fundamentally change a person's body chemistry, making it difficult to become thin. If you are obese by the age of 13, there's a 90% chance you will be overweight in your mid-30s. The rise of suburbia, changes in the American workplace, and the triumph of the automobile have made it easier to grow obese. 100 years ago, few people worked behind a desk. They worked outdoors on a farm or indoors at a factory. They worked hard and burned a great deal of energy throughout the day. Today, many people work in offices, talking on the phone, typing at a computer, sitting on their butts for most of the day. They drive to work instead of walking. They drive to the mall. They sit on the couch and play video games instead of exercising. And they eat a lot of fast food. The inactivity of American kids has played a large role in the spread of obesity. Less than 30% of high school students in the United States attend daily physical education classes, and only 12% of students walk to school. Most fast food meals are low in fiber, low in nutrients, high in salt, high in starch, high in sugar, high in fat, and high in calories. They are the perfect meals for making you unhealthy. The fast food industry says that if people get fat from eating burgers and fries, it's their own fault. The industry argues that it's a question of personal responsibility. But fast foods have been carefully designed to make you want to eat them again and again. In fact, the industry earns most of its money from a small group of customers who eat at fast food restaurants at least 3 or 4 times a week. According to one former McDonald's executive, the company has a reliable business formula, the 80-20 rule. About 80% of the money that McDonald's earns comes, he said, from just 20% of its customers. These fast food fanatics, who go to McDonald's all the time, have an unfortunate nickname in the industry. They're called heavy users. The fast food chains encourage people not only to eat things full of fat, salt, and sugar, but also to eat larger portions at every meal. If you went to a fast food restaurant during the 1950s and bought a Coca-Cola, you'd probably get about 8 ounces of soda. That was the adult portion, 8 ounces. Today, the smallest Coke that McDonald's sells, a child's Coke, is 12 ounces. That's a 50% increase in size. Many customers purchase a large Coke, which is 32 ounces, 4 times bigger than the Cokes that fast food restaurants used to sell. One of these large Cokes has 310 calories and contains the equivalent of almost 30 teaspoons of sugar. The hamburgers have gotten bigger too. In 1957, the typical fast food burger patty weighed 1 ounce. Today, the typical burger patty weighs 6 ounces. Indeed, fast food chains are now proud of how big their hamburgers have become. At Hardee's, the Monster Thick Burger contains 2/3 of a pound of beef, 4 strips of bacon, and 3 slices of cheese with mayonnaise on top. That one hamburger has 1,410 calories. To put those numbers in perspective, the average person aged 9 to 13 should eat about 1,800 calories in a single day. At Wendy's, a classic triple hamburger with cheese, great biggie French fries, and a biggie cola have about 1,760 calories. If you eat that meal at Wendy's, you probably shouldn't eat anything else that entire day. Even the children's meals at fast food restaurants have gotten bigger. In 1999, Burger King started selling the Big Kids meal, and 2 years later, McDonald's introduced the Mighty Kids meal. Eating too many of those two could turn you into a mighty big kid. A Burger King Big Kids double cheeseburger meal has 900 calories. Although the major fast food chains have led the way in encouraging Americans to eat larger portions of food, nothing that they sell comes near the burgers you can buy at Denny's Beer Barrel Pub in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. The family-owned restaurant started offering super-duper-sized hamburgers in 1991, gradually increasing the size of the ground beef patties from 2 pounds to 6 pounds. The 6-pound burger patty came with 5 pounds of toppings. In January 2004, a college student named Kate Stelnick ordered one of these 11-pound hamburgers and ate the whole thing. She weighed about 100 pounds before eating it, and increased her weight by more than 10% at this one meal. In April 2005, Denny's Beer Barrel Pub started offering what may be the largest hamburger on any menu in the world. The Beer Barrel Belly Buster weighs 15 pounds. It features 10 pounds of ground beef, 25 slices of cheese, 3 tomatoes, 2 onions, a head of lettuce, mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, relish, and peppers on a 17-inch bun. The American Disease. Children who eat too much food and become obese often feel bad about themselves. In a society that celebrates being thin, they are made to feel unattractive. They're frequently teased at school. They're far more likely than other kids to feel sad and depressed. One study of obese children in California found that their poor self-image and bleak view of the future was similar to that of children undergoing treatment for cancer. Obesity, however, can harm more than a child's feelings. It can permanently damage his or her body. Obesity has been linked to health problems such as heart disease, colon cancer, breast cancer, asthma, high blood pressure, and strokes. Obese people are 2 to 3 times more likely to die young than people of normal weight. Obesity kills more than twice as many Americans every year as car accidents. According to one recent estimate, obesity is responsible for about 110,000 deaths every year in the United States. And that estimate may be low. Some Americans have gotten so big that their coffins have to be supersized. Type 2 diabetes is one of the most serious illnesses that can be caused by obesity. Diabetes can harm the circulation in a person's feet and legs. Sometimes the damage is so severe that a limb needs to be amputated. Diabetes can cause kidney failure, blindness, and heart disease. It is now the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. 30 years ago, doctors rarely saw a child with type 2 diabetes. The disease was nicknamed adult-onset diabetes because it seemed that children never developed it. Today, type 2 diabetes has become commonplace among kids, thanks to the rise in childhood obesity. Children who don't exercise, who drink too much soda, and eat too much high-fat, high-calorie food have a much higher risk of developing diabetes. A study conducted by the federal government predicts that if American kids continue to become obese at the current rate, 1 out of every 3 children born in the year 2000 will develop diabetes. Among African American and Latino children, perhaps 1 out of every 2 will develop diabetes. The life of a 10-year-old child who has type 2 diabetes will be, on average, between 17 and 26 years shorter than that of a healthy child. As people in other countries have started to eat a lot of American fast food, they've begun to look more like Americans, at least in one way. They've gotten a lot bigger. Between 1984 and 1993, the number of fast food restaurants in Great Britain roughly doubled, and so did the obesity rate. During the 1980s, the sale of fast food in Japan more than doubled, and so did the obesity rate among Japanese children. Overweight people used to be rare in Japan. The first McDonald's opened there in 1971, introducing the Japanese to American fast food. Today, McDonald's is by far the largest restaurant chain in Japan, and today about 1/3 of Japanese men in their 30s, members of the first generation raised on Happy Meals and Big Macs, are overweight. The traditional diet in Okinawa, an island off the coast of Japan, is thought to be one of the healthiest in the world. For generations, Okinawans followed a diet that included a lot of soy, fish, fruits, and vegetables, with small amounts of meat. People in Okinawa lived longer than just about anyone anywhere else in the world. Many Okinawans could expect to live past the age of 100. The first McDonald's opened on the island in 1976, and the presence of large U.S. military bases there also encouraged the Okinawans to adopt an American diet. Today, Okinawa has the most hamburger restaurants per person in Japan. Okinawa also has the highest obesity rate in Japan. The life expectancy is falling. Many elderly Okinawans, who never learned to like fast food and still eat the island's traditional foods, may outlive their children. Windows of the soul. What we eat changes not only how we look on the outside, but also how we look on the inside. In order to demonstrate this point, Dr. Mehmet Oz stands before a long metal table in the gloomy basement of a New York City hospital. Dr. Oz is one of New York's leading heart surgeons. He thinks that many heart operations could be avoided if people exercised more and ate less fast food. He thinks that hearing about or reading about what a poor diet can do to your body isn't always enough. Seeing is believing. That's why some real body parts, removed from people who've recently died at the hospital, are spread across the table. On the right side of the table, a human brain sits in a glass jar. Nearby, there are pieces from 2 different aortas, the artery that carries blood from the heart to the rest of the body, kidneys, livers, and spines. An unopened white bucket on the left side of the table has a tag on it that says, "Hearts for Dr. Oz." When you're young, you don't have power over many things, Dr. Oz says. Your body is one thing over which you do have some power. You can function better physically and mentally if you make some good choices. Dr. Oz begins his tour of the human body by opening the glass jar and removing the brain. It's wet and glistening in his hands. He says that eating unhealthy foods can damage the brain. Foods that contain too much sugar and the wrong kinds of fats can cause your blood vessels to thicken and narrow. That can limit the amount of blood reaching your brain, reducing its ability to work properly. Over a long period of time, the damage to blood vessels can lead to infarcts or strokes, killing brain tissue. Although many people recover from such brain damage, sometimes it can kill you, paralyze you, or make it difficult for you to think clearly or speak. Dr. Oz puts the brain back into the jar and picks up the aortas. The first one is a healthy aorta. It's tan and smooth. It has a slight bounce and feels a lot like a thick rubber band. The second one looks twisted and gnarled. It's covered in thick yellowish spots. It feels like a hard piece of plastic. The second aorta was removed from a person with advanced arteriosclerosis, a disease that causes blood vessels to stiffen. As an artery gets hard, pieces of fat called plaque stick to it. If a big piece of plaque suddenly breaks off, it can block the flow of blood and cause a heart attack. With this aorta, you can literally peel the plaque off, explains Dr. Oz. It's like an old can of paint that has paint chips coming off. I call these pieces of plaque aorta chips. Atherosclerosis and other heart diseases can be caused by eating certain foods with too much fat in them. Trans fat is probably the worst kind of fat. It's an artificial, man-made fat that's found in many processed and fast foods. Trans fats are cheap, and they extend the length of time that a product can sit on the shelf without spoiling. But what's good for the companies that make this food isn't so good for the people who eat it. Trans fat increases the amount of fatty plaque in your blood and may also stiffen your arteries. Researchers at Harvard University believe that trans fats alone are now responsible for the deaths of at least 30,000 Americans every year. Many popular fast foods, French fries, fried chicken, chicken nuggets, and junk foods, donuts, cookies, packaged cakes, contain a lot of trans fat. All of these products can be made with healthier fats, but it's a little more expensive to do so. When investigators at the National Academy of Sciences tried to determine how much trans fat a person should eat, they came up with a surprising conclusion: none. As of January 2006, a new federal rule insists that all fast food and processed food companies must reveal how much trans fat is in their products. For years, these companies have refused to provide this information. Look at the label before you buy cookies, crackers, donuts, or fast food. And if you see any trans fat there, maybe you should buy something else. The two pieces of backbone on the metal table look very different from each other, just like the two aortas. The first backbone feels thick and solid. It came from a person with a healthy diet. The other backbone is full of holes. Dr. Oz describes it as crunchy. It came from a person with osteoporosis, a disease that weakens bones. One of the big contributors to osteoporosis is soft drinks, Dr. Oz says. You need a lot of calcium to develop strong bones, and children traditionally got much of their calcium by drinking milk. Today, American teenagers drink much more soda than milk. As a result, they're not getting enough calcium and their bones break more easily. A study of high school kids in Massachusetts found that 9th and 10th grade girls who drank soda were far more likely to suffer broken bones than girls who didn't drink any. The two livers on the table are especially gross. They seem like something from one of those Halloween fairs at school where you close your eyes, put your hand in a bucket, and feel something cold and wet and slimy. Your liver is the biggest organ in your body and one of the most important. It produces bile to help you digest fats, stores vitamins, maintains the right amount of sugar in your blood, and cleans toxins out of your blood. The healthy liver on the table is smooth and reddish brown. It could be a piece of meat at a butcher shop. The unhealthy liver has a green tinge, and it's covered with thick yellow globs that are stiff to the touch. The liver processes all the junk you eat when you go to a fast food restaurant, Dr. Oz says. When it gets full of fat, it doesn't behave normally. When the film director Morgan Spurlock ate nothing but fatty, sugary McDonald's food for an entire month, as depicted in the movie Super Size Me, his liver began to malfunction. Although liver damage usually takes much longer to occur, Spurlock began to feel and look pretty ill after just a few weeks on a fast food diet. To complete the guided tour of what can happen inside your body, Dr. Oz reaches into the white plastic bucket and pulls out two hearts. The healthy heart is round and pinkish brown. It feels springy when you touch it. The unhealthy heart is much bigger and darker, its color closer to black than pink. More oblong than round, it looks like a little deflated football. People talk about their hearts all the time, Dr. Oz says, holding one in each hand. There's a reason. It's a window into our soul. I try to hammer that home whenever I talk to kids about what they eat and how much they exercise and how it can affect the health of their hearts. Heart disease isn't something that just might happen to your dad. It could be what's happening right now inside your own body. It would be nice to think that heart problems occur only when you're old and gray. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In 2000, Thomas Robertson had severe chest pain and was rushed to a hospital in New Orleans. He was 5'4" and weighed 215 pounds. He often ate fast food hamburgers and fries. Doctors at the hospital were surprised to find that Thomas was having a heart attack. He was only 18 years old. Although heart attacks among teenagers are unusual, there is evidence that they become more common. A study published in the spring of 2004 found that some 10-year-old obese children already had heart damage similar to that of a 45-year-old man who'd been smoking cigarettes for 10 years. Weighing in. After returning home from Las Vegas, Sam Fabricant made an appointment to see Dr. Chris Salvino, a surgeon who specializes in gastric bypass operations. Dr. Salvino knew the Fabricant family well, having already operated on Sam's brother. During the previous 10 years, a type of surgery once considered unusual had become almost routine. In 1993, surgeons performed about 16,000 gastric bypass operations. As the number of obese Americans skyrocketed, so did the number of gastric bypasses. By 2004, surgeons performed about 150,000 of them. Many doctors viewed the surgery as an important tool to prevent the health problems associated with obesity. But some doctors also viewed the surgery as a good way to make money. The cost for one of these operations could be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000. Dr. Salvino had an unusual background for a bariatric surgeon, the kind of doctor who operates on the stomach and intestines. For years, he trained to become an astronaut. He'd earned 6 college degrees in biology, aerospace medicine, flight aeronautics, mechanical engineering, space studies, and technology in flight, and worked as a surgeon in the Air Force. His hopes of blasting into space were dashed by poor eyesight. NASA requires its astronauts to have at least 20/200 vision, and Salvino was just a bit too nearsighted. After working as a surgeon in Africa, he returned to the United States and performed his first gastric bypass surgery in 1998. Dr. Salvino soon realized that this was an operation with a great future. In 2000, he put together a business plan for opening clinics devoted solely to weight loss surgery. His first weight intervention and surgical health care, WISH Center, was in Downers Grove, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. By 2004, others had been launched in Texas, Arizona, Florida, Washington, and Ohio. Before choosing their locations, Dr. Salvino carefully studied the obesity rates in nearby communities and the number of rival bariatric surgeons. On August 3, 2004, Sam visited the WISH Center headquarters in Downers Grove. A nurse asked him to get on a scale. Sam was 5'9" and weighed 290 pounds. Dr. Salvino warned that before having the operation, Sam would have to see an independent psychiatrist to make sure that he could mentally handle the procedure and its aftermath. Having gastric bypass surgery is very stressful, and some people don't have the emotional strength to deal with it. For the next 4 months, Sam would have to meet with doctors at the WISH Center to make sure he was a good candidate for the operation. He would have to complete online training seminars to prepare him, and he would have to start eating 6 small meals a day so that his mind and body could get used to the habit. Sam felt better prepared for the surgery than most people, having already watched his mother and his brother go through it, but he was scared. Despite the large number of gastric bypass surgeries that are performed every year, it remains a risky operation. Patients may suffer from internal bleeding, intestinal leaks, blood clots, or infections. Perhaps 1 out of every 100 patients dies within 30 days of having the operation. When gastric bypass surgery is done by an unskilled surgeon, the death rate can be even higher. At least 10 hospitals in 6 states no longer allow the operation because so many of their patients had died. Even when the patient survives, gastric bypass surgery can have serious complications. Some patients suffer nerve damage that can cause lifelong pain. Others need to undergo a second operation after the first one somehow goes wrong. Even a successful operation can lead to serious complications or even death months later. Gastric bypass patients must take large doses of vitamins for the rest of their lives because their new digestive systems are too small to absorb the necessary amounts from food. If a patient stops taking those vitamins, he or she can develop life-threatening deficiencies of calcium, iron, vitamin B, and vitamin D. In April 2004, Warren Allen died 10 months after having gastric bypass surgery at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. He had stopped taking his vitamins, which led to kidney problems, gangrene, wounds that wouldn't heal, and blood clots in the brain. At the time of his operation, Allen was 18 years old and weighed more than 500 pounds. Although for years he'd eaten too much food, at the time of his death, Allen was suffering from malnutrition, from not getting the crucial vitamins his body needed. Some gastric bypass patients have even developed beriberi, a disease common among starving and malnourished children in Africa. Kids with beriberi develop large, unnaturally round bellies. Many doctors refuse to perform gastric bypass surgery on teenagers, worried not only about the risk of life-threatening complications, but also about the possibility of stunting their growth. A teenager who has a gastric bypass operation may never reach his or her full height. Dr. Salvino is one of the few bariatric surgeons willing to perform the operation on teens. He believes that for some young patients, the health risk of not having surgery is too great. That is, the lifelong risk of developing cancer, heart disease, or diabetes from remaining obese. Dr. Salvino is an experienced surgeon, having performed more than 1,500 gastric bypass operations. The death rate among patients at his WISH centers is lower than the national average. About 1 out of every 1,700 patients dies within a month of surgery there. As Sam left his first appointment at the WISH Center, he was glad to be getting ready for surgery. The Wish Center seemed like the right place to have the operation. The company was trying to do for gastric bypass surgery what McDonald's had done for fast food: create a reliable, predictable national brand. The Wish Center had even started to run ads on television, suggesting to obese people that surgery might be the answer to their problems. At the Wish store, you could buy bottles of Wish Protein Plus Vanilla Meal Replacement Powder, Wish Protein Plus Chocolate Convenience Packs, Wish Angel Pens, Wish 25-ounce protein shaker cups with twist-off tops, and DVDs like Fitness with Bliss, Sitting Aerobics. On the wall in one of the offices at the Wish Center, there was a large map of the United States. Colored pins marked the 6 locations where Wish Centers had already opened, and the company was planning to open more. On the drive home from the Wish Center, Sam and his mother passed within a couple of miles of McDonald's corporate headquarters in Oak Brook, Illinois. It seemed fitting that the headquarters of these two companies should be so close to each other. One sold the inexpensive fast food that could make you obese, while the other sold a painful and expensive remedy. A glass display case at McDonald's headquarters holds an old photograph of Ray Kroc in his office during the 1950s, when McDonald's was just getting started. A map of the United States was mounted on his wall, and the locations of new McDonald's restaurants were proudly marked by little round lights. Complicated. On December 19, 2004, the day before his operation, Sam wasn't allowed to eat anything. His stomach needed to be completely empty when the doctors made it smaller. He drank apple juice and water all day, trying not to feel too hungry. He was scared. Before going to bed that night, Sam asked his parents, "Are you sure I'm doing the right thing?" They told him that the surgery would go just fine and that it was perfectly normal to feel nervous. He didn't sleep well that night. At 4:15 the next morning, Sam and his family headed to Provena Mercy Medical Center. It was still dark when they arrived at the admissions desk. After checking in, Sam changed into a hospital gown, got a shot of Valium in the arm to help him relax, and was wheeled into the operating room. The nurses asked him to lie down on a cold metal table, and an anesthesiologist explained that a powerful drug would soon put him to sleep. Before Sam realized what was happening, he lost consciousness, and then Dr. Salvino cut into his abdomen to begin the operation. When Dr. Salvino peered inside Sam's belly, things didn't look right. Sam had a rare disorder. His intestines were oddly twisted and in an unusual place. Dr. Salvino needed help from other surgeons to make sure that Sam's internal organs wouldn't be damaged by the operation. The doctors had to move around the intestines a great deal and knew that as a result, Sam would feel a lot of pain later. They stapled part of his stomach to create a small pouch, attached a section of his small intestine to it, and then sewed his belly shut. The operation lasted about 3 hours, much longer than usual, and Sam was wheeled out of the operating room around noon. A few hours later, Sam's mother sat beside his bed in the recovery room. He was still unconscious, connected by wires and tubes to all sorts of machines. She noticed that his breathing seemed a little odd, and his blood pressure was also unusually high. Hours passed without Sam's waking up or responding when people spoke to him. The doctors became concerned and conducted a series of tests. They found that a blood clot had formed in Sam's leg and traveled to his lung. If the clot blocked an artery, it could damage his lung or kill him. Sam spent the next 5 days in the intensive care unit of the hospital, where the sickest and most vulnerable patients are kept. In order to get rid of the blood clot, the doctors gave Sam blood-thinning medicine. It made the clot smaller, but also made his wounds bleed. A metal screen was inserted into a large vein near his groin to ensure that no other blood clot could travel to his lungs or his brain. Sam was awake but groggy, not really sure where he was or what was happening. There was a chance that he might die. A doctor from the Wish Center spent the night in Sam's room 2 days after the operation, worried that he might not make it. Sam's mother was at the hospital day and night. Sam finally left the hospital on New Year's Eve, 11 days after the operation. He felt weak, but his life was no longer in danger. After getting out of the car and stepping into the snow on the driveway, he paused and took a deep breath. It felt good to be home. He couldn't eat any solid food for a week. His mother gave him 3 shots a day of a drug to dissolve any blood clots, and his brother Charlie had to give him baths like a little baby might get. Sam was too exhausted to be embarrassed. 2 weeks after the operation, Sam and Charlie and their mother appeared on NBC's Today Show to talk about gastric bypass surgery. Sam still wasn't feeling well. The most he could eat at one sitting was a few spoonfuls of pudding. He wanted to feel excited about appearing on TV, but just couldn't. The family had to get up really early and leave the house at 4 in the morning to make it to the Wish Center on time. Before going on the air, Sam's face was patted with makeup and his hair styled with gel. He'd never used gel before, let alone makeup, and the whole thing felt weird. When Matt Lauer, one of the show's hosts, asked how the surgery had gone, Sam tried to sound upbeat. "Unfortunately, I was one of the few who did have complications," he said. "But the doctors here were able to catch it, and knock on wood, I'm doing great now." A year after his operation, in December 2005, Sam weighed less than half of what he did before the operation. He'd lost 147 pounds. Whenever he looked in the mirror, Sam saw a different person. Classmates would stop him in the hallway at school and say, "Wow, you're looking terrific." He felt grateful to Dr. Salvino and to everyone at the Wish Center. The company, however, wasn't doing as well as Sam. In the spring, it had gone bankrupt. Health insurance firms were increasingly reluctant to pay for gastric bypass surgery, and the Wish Center in Florida had to shut down. The company went through a rough time, though it eventually emerged from bankruptcy. Sam's new life became much happier, but it wasn't easy. He thought the Wish Center protein drinks tasted lousy, and he didn't always follow the doctor's instructions. One morning, he realized that some of his hair was falling out, a sign of malnutrition. He'd been forgetting to take his vitamins. Eating used to be one of his great pleasures. After the operation, it became a chore. He couldn't eat more than a few bites of anything at one sitting. If he ate more than that, he felt like vomiting. Every now and then, Sam craved a fudge sundae or a Coca-Cola, foods that he could never have again. The sugar in the sundae would give him an intense headache, and the bubbles in the soda would cause terrible stomach pain. He could still eat hamburgers, however. It just took a while. If Sam wanted to eat a Big Mac, he'd have to cut it into 6 small pieces, and then eat one piece every 3 hours. The same burger that most people can finish in a few minutes would take Sam about 15 hours to eat.